There's been very significant progress in the recovery operations of our migrant workers' dormitories. By today, around 40,000 migrant workers who were dormitory residents would have been cleared of COVID-19 infections. Let me just tell you a little bit about this 40,000. About 12,000 of them are essential workers that have already moved out of the dormitories into other short-term accommodation previously. They've been tested, they've been cleared, and they've continued to work. Now, more than 20,000 workers have recovered and have been rehoused at various temporary sites. Then we have another 8,000 who are workers living in all the dormitories that we have. These workers have either tested negative or were tested positive, but have fully recovered and been discharged. And they are now living with their fellow workers who have also been cleared of the virus in the dormitories. So this is the makeup, the composition of those 40,000 migrant workers that have been cleared of COVID-19 infections, and they can actually all resume work. Now, at the same time, the Interagency Task Force will be giving the first batch of 60 dormitories cleared status from tomorrow. This first batch consists of 3 purpose-built dormitories, 57 factory-converted dormitories, and construction temporary quarters. Now, what does it mean to say that a dormitory has been cleared? It means that every block in that dormitory has been cleared, and what it means is that every resident in those blocks have been cleared of COVID-19 infection. So that's very remarkable progress made by the Interagency Task Force to get us onto the recovery phase. Now, in order to facilitate the safe return of work or to work for these workers, the Interagency Task Force has first enhanced the medical support for the migrant workers. We've started on a program of systematic and regular testing and enhanced health surveillance. And the purpose of these are to enable early detections of any infection, and of course, in the case of the cleared workers, the reinfections, and we want to minimize the risk of widespread transmission. The task force has also worked with dorm operators and employers to put in place a series of safe working, safe living, and even safe rest days measures. And in the months ahead, to properly manage the safe resumption of work, the MOM, the Interagency Task Force, have also worked with DSTA and GovTech to create new technology solutions. One of these new technology solutions is an access code feature on the SG WorkPass app. Now, almost all of our migrant workers have downloaded the SG WorkPass app. And this new access code feature will allow the workers themselves, their employers, as well as the dormitory operators to have clarity about who can exit the dormitories to work. You need to have a green status, you have to have a green code showing up on the SG WorkPass that says you have been cleared, you have met all the conditions, which include your employers having been granted approval to resume operations, and the dormitory that you are living in is also cleared. These conditions must be met in order for the worker to be able to resume work safely. And how do we know whether these conditions have been met? The SG WorkPass, with this new additional feature of access code, will give clarity to all the parties involved. And these efforts are very important and also necessary to protect the health of the migrant workers as well as their co-workers and the community at large. So that's a summary of the recovery operations, the progress that we have made, and how we are preparing for resumption of work. Now, At this stage, we are also planning ahead for the longer term. At the start of the outbreak, I had said that we will look into how we could improve and raise the standards in our migrant worker dormitories. The dormitories allow the migrant workers to be in the company of friends, to cook, to eat, to relax, and even pray together. Now, given Singapore's land constraints, dormitories are also a practical approach to housing some of our migrant workers. Now, this is unlikely to change. What will need to change, however, are the specifications, as well as the management of the dormitories, including the daily living habits of the dormitory residents. The changes will be necessary to better protect the workers from widespread transmission and to strengthen the resilience of the dormitories against pandemic risks, such as those posed by COVID-19, which is something we have never experienced before. Minister Lawrence Wong will talk about how much more dormitory capacity we are planning for, both in the short as well as the longer term. In particular, the building up of temporary dormitories, additional temporary dormitories in the short term, presents us with a very good opportunity to pilot new standards. And what this does is to allow us to test things out before we decide on the specifications of the permanent new dormitories that will be built. Now, we have outlined what the new specifications are for the new short-term accommodation options that are coming up, the quick build dormitories. And this is covered in the press release, so I won't go through every one of the features, but to say that you can compare it with the current standards that are a requirement already. Let me just emphasize a few points with regards to the testing out of these new specifications. The first is that our overall aim is to strengthen resilience against pandemic risks. So it is not just that we try and reduce the risk of widespread transmission, but how we can respond more effectively when there is an outbreak. So these two objectives have to be met, not just to reduce the risk of transmission, but if an outbreak happens, you need to be able to respond more effectively. The second point is that we should really work on the assumption that the risk will always be present in a dormitory, just like the risk is present in any household. A dormitory will always be a big household, and you can make sure that fewer people share the same room or facilities like kitchen or bathrooms, but there must also be discipline in the practice of hygiene and segregation. On luxury cruise ships and even aircraft carriers, the virus can spread easily. And in those settings, room arrangements, you don't have many people sharing. And in aircraft carriers, certainly the discipline level will be quite high. So we must be under no illusion that any specifications on their own will get the job done. The third point is therefore why the pilot is not just about new dorm specifications. That's actually the easier part. It is about how safe living practices can be made a new way of life in the dormitories, where the residents can cook safely, eat safely, relax safely. These are the things that we are looking to do. The dormitories will also have to be managed differently, with operators helping to instill a higher degree of discipline. For example, on intermixing and ensuring tight isolation of infected workers, if and when that happens. And we will work closely with the dormitory operators as well as the employer groups in the construction, marine, and process manufacturing sectors on the quick build dormitories. And as this is a pilot, we expect it to be an iterative process with refinements as we go along. Through the pilot, we will also assess the effectiveness, scalability, and sustainability of the new standards. At the end of the day, these are the necessary steps that we have to take to keep the workers and the community safe and to allow Singaporeans to be able to continue to benefit from the migrant workers' contributions.